We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hello and welcome on into the Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Zach Burke keeps us on the air 5 days a week. We're live on YouTube just as we are, high noon Eastern time every weekday. And then, of course, available wherever you get your podcast. Today, we're talking about the newest in the Stefon Diggs drama and why everyone wouldn't shut up about it over the weekend. Plus, trying to get the latest on whatever this Bruins coaching search is. They've narrowed it down to two. Who the two are, we don't know. And are any of them actually good options? Plus, Garrett Crochet is putting together a Cy Young type of season. Are the Red Sox ruining it? Are they ruining the first year of Crochet, much like they kind of did with the beginning and sort of the end of Chris Sale? All that and more coming up on this episode of The Cam Show. Let's hop right into it. You've been waiting long enough. Over the weekend, everyone was talking about the Stefon Diggs drama still. Even though this happened on, Memorial Day Sunday? You know the story, the video that we can't play, the boat, the women in the bikinis, daddy, pink cocaine. Look, there but for the grace of God, go all of us. That's a productive Memorial Day weekend for any one of us, right? Right. Well, it proved to be an embarrassing moment for the Patriots. Mike Vrabel had to address it at practice and was kind of mum on the subject. Just said like, hey, we got to make good decisions out there. And you could tell he was kind of pissed. And Scott Zolak, who of course is the radio color guy for the Patriots, pretty plugged in to this organization, went on the radio on Friday just after our show and took it a step further. Could there be more action taken against Stefon Diggs?
Stelgrim has accused you of protecting Stefon Diggs.
I would not be shocked if he's released. I would not be, based off this, the way you saw it.
Are you serious?
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked by it. If you're trying to establish culture, you think about it. Vrabel doesn't put up a crap. Like that's one thing you take away since Mike's gotten here. He's not afraid to make change. I don't think he's afraid to send messages. Like, I mean, I see the video, then I think differently than when I saw the still picture.
Now, that sounds like a bombshell, right? I mean, you saw Bertrand's reaction. That was kind of, I think all of us, like, what? Really? Like, this is a legit possibility, and outlets have been running with this all throughout the weekend. And to that end, like, there is some argument that you can make there that Vrabel comes in day one and touts culture, accountability, leadership, like all this stuff that the Patriots were so great at for so long and have not had the last couple of years. They also haven't had very much talent, but they haven't had those things either, right? And so it does kind of make some sense in that sphere of like, this is my guy. I brought in here. We spent some money on this guy, and this is the first thing he does really with the Patriots. I can really send a message to the rest of the 52 other guys that are going to be in this locker room come the end of August and say, look, nobody's above this. Like, this is the most accomplished player on our team, really. You know, this is an all-pro. I know he hasn't won a Super Bowl, played in a Super Bowl, but an all-pro caliber guy, the best at his position of anybody on the team. And to just outright cut him like that would be a huge message and would get his point across on accountability and checking all the other shit at the door. And you know what it would be? It would be very Belichick. And I know Vrabel is not a Belichick disciple. I hate hearing that. I hate hearing like, oh, it's just diving back into the Belichick tree. It's not. He's never coached under Belichick. He played under Belichick for a while, but we're not looking out in Minnesota and being like, oh, the Bill Belichick coaching tree with Kevin O'Connell. You know, but it would bring a lot of the good of Bill Belichick to make that move. That said, the obvious here, you can't make that move. I'm sorry. You can't cut Stefon Diggs on June 2nd over this. It's just not possible for this team trying to find their footing and actually rebuild this thing. I mean, you're talking about having the worst wide receiver room in the league last year and the year before that, and probably in 2020 as well. So I can argue pretty comfortably that in 3 of the last 5 seasons, this team has had the worst wide receiver core in all of football. They've had one 100-yard receiving game in like the last 3 years. And it was Kayshon Boutte in a meaningless game against Buffalo that they should not have won. Not that they shouldn't have cared, that they should not have won. That's the only time that this receiver core has put up a game like that, or somebody in this receiver core has done that. I know Stefon Diggs is on the wrong side of 30. I know he's coming off a major injury. I'm probably not as high on him, no pun intended, as some other Patriots fans. But that is too good a guy to be cutting over this in June. Is it a bad look? Sure it is. Like, again, I was kind of with Zolak in a way, and like it took me a couple of watches to be like, oh, that's cocaine probably. And it wasn't until somebody else pointed it out. You're just like, oh, I guess that is what it is. I'm more focused on like, who are these women that he's with? Hard launching Cardi B. And he's with all these scantily clad women in bikinis on a boat on Memorial Day weekend. I mean, God, couldn't that be all of us? And they're calling him daddy, and he's making them call him that. That's more what I'm focused on. And then it's like, oh yeah, that might be. I don't think those are pop rocks. I don't think those are pixie sticks he's handing out to those lovely young ladies on the boat. The other thing, though, beyond the fact that the Patriots really need this football player, beyond that, I don't even think Stefon Diggs should be cut like from a moral standpoint for this. Do you? Does it look good? No, it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. But in the working world, like in reality, in court of law reality, what do you pin on Stefon Diggs there? We don't see him taking any drugs. We don't even know if they are drugs, really. I mean, we can be adults and infer that, yeah, that's probably pink cocaine right there. But there's nothing that shows us he did it. He's not giving it to kids. He's not doing any of that. He's not hitting women. He's not doing that. So it's really tough to just be like, oh, that stuff in the bag that you had on a boat might be cocaine. You're off my team. I just don't know that you can do that. I don't know that the league can do that. I don't know that the league can suspend him for this. But of course, Roger Goodell can do any fucking thing he wants. We knew that as Patriots fans 10 years ago, and nobody listened to us. And now you see, Roger Goodell can do anything he wants. But also, elephant in the room, Jabril Peppers is going to play for you this year. He's going to play for you. He's going to play for the New England Patriots. He's still under contract, still with the team. Was a captain last year. Like, we know he actually did cocaine. We have that toxicology report or whatever, that he did cocaine, had it in his possession, and allegedly assaulted a girlfriend. Is that what it was? So he's on the team. Now, he didn't play the rest of last year, and the charges were dropped. But if you're going to cut a guy for doing something bad and making your team look really bad, I think we would start with Jabril Peppers before Stefon Diggs. And that one should be even easier for Mike Vrabel because he's not a guy that was signed under Vrabel's regime. In fact, that was 2 regimes ago that they signed Jabril Peppers. Like, that could be easy to just be like he's letting all the other Belichick guys walk, basically forced David Andrews into retirement. Dietrich Wise, okay, have fun. Go along your merry way. The other corner there, whose name is Jonathan Jones from Auburn. All right, go ahead. Yep. Yeah, you guys were super valuable under Belichick. You guys have won Super Bowls and everything, but I don't need you anymore. So it should be much easier for him to cut a guy like Jabril Peppers, who, let's be honest, I mean, I don't want to get into a pissing contest, but this would be a very easy one. What Jabril Peppers did was much worse than what Stefon Diggs did. Like, come on. He attacked a woman. Like, yeah, that's way worse than what Stefon Diggs did. So it would be, in my mind, completely asinine to cut Stefon Diggs. Completely asinine. I get the argument. I understand it of like, hey, culture and this, that, and the other. And it's not that I'm not bothered by it, because it does suck that here's a guy who is on his last real contract, making his last real bits of money here, and can still be a number one guy for you at a crucial time in your organization where you're trying to develop a young quarterback into a franchise guy, top 5, top 10 guy in the league kind of guy. You need a baller, diva, number one receiver for that. That's all we've heard the last few years. And you finally got one. It was not 28, but you got one. And this is the first thing he really does as a Patriot. This is the first news he makes as a Patriot. That's not good. In fact, I'd rather him just be. Why isn't he at OTAs? I know they're optional. I know you're rehabbing, but new team, new offense, new quarterback. And instead you're on a boat handing out pink cocaine? Like, I don't like it. Trust me. But this would be ridiculous to cut this guy over that. Like, would that... I'm trying to think of like a working world example, man. Like if you're... I don't know. If you're a teacher and you get a small town, you get a DUI and it's all over your local town Facebook page, I don't even think you get fired over that. In fact, in my small hometown, you definitely don't get fired over that because that's happened. And the police tase you and you don't get fired. So, you know, and I don't know, should they be? I don't think so. So I don't think Stefon Diggs should be fired here. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But you also, from a football standpoint, you have got a team that desperately needs a receiver like this. I'm not saying bend the rules for anybody. In fact, I'm kind of saying the opposite. You shouldn't be fired anyway. But when you are this desperate for a receiver that can make plays on the outside for your young quarterback, and you finally get one, it sucks that this is the first time he appears in the news, but to cut him for the sake of culture when someone like Jabril Peppers is still in the building, it would be totally asinine and two-faced, and just that would go kind of in the face of exactly what Mike Vrabel is trying to avoid, or trying to do, I guess, going in the face of what he's trying to do. He's trying to build culture, and to cut someone over this would, on the surface, look like a culture move, but really it would rattle a lot of cages inside the locker room. You know, guys who are saying, man, one of the best players on our team is gone. He didn't even do something as bad as this replaceable safety. You know, it would, I think, do more damage to the locker room than it would do to benefit the locker room, which is the only reason that Mike Vrabel would do this, is to build this culture and solidify his locker room. But anyway, I understand the argument, but to me, I would be just as shocked as everyone looking this weekend saying that he might get cut if he actually gets cut. I think that would be totally ridiculous, and it would give you legit beef as a Patriots fan. That said, Stefon Diggs, maybe stop handing out pink cocaine on boats. Suggestion. Some light words of advice for someone who is not as old as you nor been as famous as you yet. Just don't do that. Or don't have the goddamn cell phones out. Like, seriously, that's what bugs me the most about this thing. He's been famous for 10 years, and he lets everyone record him on his cell phone. What the hell are you doing, man? What are you doing? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Is this worth actually cutting Stefon Diggs from the Patriots from a football standpoint, or just from a regular workplace standpoint? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're on the path towards 4,000 subscribers, and it helps me keep my job, lets my boss know that I'm doing something okay. So like, subscribe, get involved in the comment section, and check out all the other videos on the channel talking Patriots and everything else going on in Boston sports. We are here every weekday, high noon Eastern time, and then wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Zach Burke keeps us on the air every day. Yeah, no way. You can't. You can't. You cannot. You can't cut the guy. I'm sorry. If you do it though, Mike, if you do it, Mike Vrabel, if you cut Stefon Diggs, then there should be a second move right after it of we're cutting Jabril Peppers too. Would suck for the football team, but at least we would know that you're putting your balls out on the table, that you're being serious about this thing. Again, just my 2 cents. 2 cents. 2 head coaching candidates for the Boston Bruins. Apparently, there's 4 guys whose names are still on the table, but allegedly the Bruins have narrowed it down to 2, and neither one is gonna really get your jockstrap feeling light. We'll talk more about it coming up next on The Cam Show.
We'll be right back after these quick words from our sponsors. This is Rogue Media Network.
Tervis is all about staying hydrated with style and durability. You can trust Tervis tumblers to keep your drinks the perfect temperature, hot or cold, for hours. From the classic insulated tumblers to sleek stainless steel water bottles, each product is built to last and comes in endless designs to match your personality. Stay refreshed and express yourself with Tervis. Visit tervis.com today and find your perfect tumbler.
Since our founding, we've been revolutionizing hair removal with cutting-edge technology and a commitment to empowerment. The U-Like Air 3, launched in 2023, ushers in a new era of sapphire ice cooling technology, offering nearly painless hair reduction in just 3 weeks. Experience the future of hair removal today at ulike.com, because at U-Like, beauty is about looking and feeling good. That's ulike.com. U-Like. With Ease US, make studio-quality voiceovers for your videos online in over 149 languages and dialects, featuring 468 natural AI voices. Customize the volume, mood, and pauses to perfectly match your content. Plus, capture high-quality videos with no watermark. Record your screen, webcam, and voice, and save them instantly to your computer. Never been easier to create professional-grade videos and voiceovers. Try it today at easeus.com. That's EASEUS.com. Ease US.
Just use AmpPay.
And pace.
And now, back to our show.
We're on The Cam Show, Rogue Media Sports Network. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Zach Burke keeping us on the air as he does 5 days a week. We're live on YouTube, high noon Eastern time, and then, of course, available wherever you get your podcasts as well. We've already talked about the Patriots. Stefon Diggs, should he be cut? Boy, the comments are rolling in on this. Stefon Diggs, pink cocaine video, should he be cut from the Patriots to prove a point? Man, in a word, no. Thank you, William. Get involved in the comment section. Let us know what you think about that. And now we'll be talking some Bruins, so let us know what you think about that as well, because the Bruins are down to 2 guys for their head coaching vacancy. At least that's what Elliot Friedman, Pierre LeBrun have both said. Who those 2 guys are? Shit. That's anyone's guess. Last week, a week ago, Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects said it was Marco Sturm. They're going to hire Marco Sturm. Didn't surprise any of us. Not the best move in the world, I wouldn't think. But wouldn't surprise anybody. But now we're hearing 2 guys. It's down to 2. And all we know about names is that Joe Sacco is out. Elliot Friedman said that. So that leaves Marco Sturm, Jay Leach, Jay Woodcroft, and Mitch Love. Boy, is that lighting your hair on fire, any of those? Of course not. None of these guys are going to. What does worry me, because I'm such a pessimist about this team and this regime, Don Sweeney, is we're sitting here on June 2nd. The Bruins played their last game on April 15th. And on June 2nd, not only do they not have a coach, but they have only just now ruled out their interim coach, Joe Sacco. If it took this long to rule out Joe Sacco, how good can these candidates really be? Like that has to be the question. Like, seriously. This team was dog shit for so long. And I'm not saying this is like all Joe Sacco's fault. He dealt with what he had to deal with, right? The cupboard that was given to him. And that was really bare at the end of the season. But after all that, after what you saw for the last 4 months of the season, 5 months of the season, you sit there and say, yeah, man, I just can't get the Joe Sacco thing out of my head. I really, Joe Sacco, he's got to be a candidate here. All due respect to Joe Sacco, man. I feel for him, sacrificial lamb. He should have been out of the process on April 16th. Like, if we are serious about moving forward as an organization, Joe Sacco was never going to be the head coach for that. Never. So if you're serious about getting someone who will evolve offensively and work with the young guys, because you're going to have a young group here, then Joe Sacco should not have been that guy. And honestly, you should be trying to remove as much as you can from last year's team. You removed half the roster at the trade deadline. You should be removing the entire coaching staff. And yeah, I think you should be removing the guys in the front office as well. But, we can't all get what we want. But the fact that Joe Sacco was still in this race until June the 2nd is pretty embarrassing. Pretty embarrassing. Now only two openings left across the National Hockey League. That's the Bruins and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So Marco Sturm and Jay Woodcroft, we've talked a lot about. Check out the video on the channel. I'll put it in the description where we kind of compared those two guys. I've kind of said my piece. If you're looking to evolve offensively, Marco Sturm has a lot of room to evolve. Okay, and no one is banging down the door of Marco Sturm. Would the world be falling down? The sky be falling if Marco Sturm comes in as your head coach? Probably not, but it's probably not a move forward. Jay Woodcroft, I still get really bugged and peeved by the fact that he had McDavid and Draisaitl and didn't get the job done with them. And was so bad to start a season with those guys, they fired him like Jim Montgomery style a month into the season. And the next guy has taken them to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. Yeah, it's not a good look for me. Now, coaches sometimes get a real nice bump on that second place that they go as NHL head coaches. Okay. Jay Leach, no. Sorry. I don't want anything to do with this. This Bruins assistants, Providence Bruins. I don't want it. Clearly, we need something new as an organization. Clearly, you do. And so that leaves Mitch Love. And I got to say, the more I read on Mitch Love, the more I can buy into a Mitch Love hire. It's not someone you've heard of. But then again, the only person you've really heard of is Marco Sturm. And what does that mean? Right? He's an assistant for the Capitals for Spencer Carberry. He is basically the defensive guy for them, the defensive coordinator, if you will, for the Washington Capitals, which were the number one team in the Eastern Conference the whole year. Kind of came out of nowhere to do that. And it was in large part actually thanks to their defense. You weren't really paying attention to that because, Alex Ovechkin was chasing the all-time goal record. But they had a top 10 defense in the league. 279 goals per game. 8th lowest in the NHL. And that was all Mitch Love. He's also part of the Spencer Carberry staff, who Spencer Carberry Coach of the Year, man. I mean, the job he did there was incredible. Was also a guy, Carberry, who was a finalist when the Bruins hired Jim Montgomery. And again, I don't think the Bruins' failures of the last year and a half, 2 years, are all on Jim Montgomery. But I think if they had to do this over again, they would have picked Spencer Carberry over Jim Montgomery. I think that's very fair to say. Now you can actually get a guy from the Carberry staff. And I'm not hung up on the lack of head coaching experience. I've said that in the past. If a guy is a good fit, like I'll take that over a guy who's just been mid in the NHL. Or a guy who was good in the NHL as a head coach, but had the two biggest cheat codes in the league and still couldn't get it done, like Jay Woodcroft. And I know that this Mitch Love thing, if they do hire Mitch Love, it would be the antithesis of what Don Sweeney said he was looking for and someone who could evolve offensively. But so are the rest of these guys. Like, so is Marco Sturm. And you have Mitch Love, a guy who was like the next Don Cherry, potentially. Like, he was a minor league player, somewhere on the teetering on the line of pest and enforcer. So if you want to buy into like that Bruins way kind of crap, that bullshit that we hear every year of like, oh, this guy's a good Bruin. He's going to mix it up. That's a Bruin. Like, you don't have one of those guys on the roster right now, okay? You don't have a single pest on the roster, and you have one guy who can chuck them, and that's Nikita Zadorov, okay? But if you want to buy into that bullshit, Mitch Love gives you that. Marco Sturm doesn't. Jay Woodcroft doesn't. Jay Leach does not. But Mitch Love does. And again, it goes against what Don Sweeney was saying about needing to evolve offensively. And I'm not saying the Bruins don't need to get better offensively. But when you have a lack of talent like the Bruins have, that they're not going to course correct in one offseason. They're not going to. They need a lot of talent. And if you don't have that, much like the Capitals had, not this past year, but the year before, and you really become, and I was saying this after Montgomery got fired, I was like, the one way they can get into the playoffs is if they become a super structured, almost Scotty Bowman-like defensive team. Like, I'm talking structure next to a neutral zone trap kind of shit. Like, super defensive. Actually, the way the Oilers have been a lot of this postseason. Defensive, physical, a little bit faster. That can make up for something of a lack of offensive talent. Mitch Love has had that everywhere he's been. Everywhere he's been. In the WHL, in the NHL, as an assistant on those staffs, that's what he has brought to teams. And by the way, this doesn't mean his defensemen can't be offensive powers, okay? You remember the guy the Bruins were looking at a few years ago in a trade? Actually, as recently as last year in the Ullmark trade? Jacob Chychrun? Now you know him. He's one of the best defensemen in the league. He got unleashed under Mitch Love. Like, big time. And some of these other guys for the Capitals were really opening up offensively. And that is the only part of Jim Montgomery's coaching philosophy that I think was really good for the Bruins, was how much the defenseman jumped into the play. Mitch Love brings that. He absolutely brings that. These other guys don't. I know he's not a name that you know. I know he's an assistant coach. But by now, the Bruins just need to be looking for the right guy. Mitch Love, of those four guys, is to me the most right. I still like Misha Donskov from the Stars. I'm bummed that they kind of put him to the wayside pretty quickly. But speaking of the Stars, what if the Bruins, they've already waited this long. What if they wait a few more days here? What if they just keep their eyes, I think the Bruins and the Penguins should both be doing this, keeping their eyes on what's happening in Dallas. Pete DeBoer just humiliated their franchise goalie in the Western Conference Final. They lost in the conference final for the third year in a row. A team that's pretty dang talented. And they've got a championship window that's still open for a couple of years. They might need a change there. Because they've got the franchise goalie. They've now got the franchise goal scorer in Mikko Rantanen. They got the franchise defenseman in Miro Heiskanen. They might be looking at this of like we've got to get a different guy in here. Maybe that is Misha Donskov, because at this point, the cupboard's pretty bare. And maybe they're like, you know what? This is the guy who's the secret behind this, and he's not going to humiliate our players. It's a little late in the process, but what Pete DeBoer did in that Game 5, that's kind of a fireable context. That's kind of a fireable situation there. And Pete has worn out his welcome in a couple different places. He's still one hell of a coach who does not have his name on the Stanley Cup. Like, if he suddenly becomes available, the Bruins should make the biggest push imaginable. I don't, like, even from a fit standpoint, I don't even really care. Like, Pete DeBoer is next to being a Hall of Fame coach. And he's just there in the beginning of June. you would be really stupid if you were still looking for a coach to not make a full push for Pete DeBoer. It's a long shot, but it's possible. Like the way that Dallas reacted to that and the hockey world reacted to that. Maybe the hockey world just likes hockey more than Dallas does. Very possible. But the way the hockey world reacted to him pulling Ottinger 7 minutes into that game in a elimination game for the Stars, crazier things have happened. He could be available. So it's been too long to wait anyway, but now that you have Bruins, maybe just give it a couple of days. And if it's not Pete DeBoer, I love Mitch Love. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and get involved in that comment section. Who should be the guy for the Bruins? Should they wait on Pete DeBoer? Am I completely crazy? Please let me know in the comment section below. And be sure to catch us live on YouTube, high noon Eastern time every weekday, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. Check out the other videos on the YouTube channel, talking the Bruins and this coaching search and everything going on in Boston sports. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Zach Burke keeps us on the air 5 days a week. The Red Sox are blowing it, but we already knew that. Are they blowing a truly historic season from their ace starting pitcher? And is this the second time they've done something like this in recent memory? That's coming up next on The Cam Show.
We'll be right back after these quick words from our sponsors. This is Rogue Media Network.
Maud Lily is your go-to for stylish and affordable fashion that fits your life. Whether you're looking for the perfect swimsuit for a beach day, a chic dress for a night out, or cozy tops for everyday wear, Maud Lily has it all. Their extensive collection of swimwear, including bikinis, tankinis, and one-pieces, always keeps you on trend, while their dresses and tops come in flattering styles for every occasion. Visit maudlily.com today.
Natural Cycles identifies your fertile window by analyzing changes in your temperature. It's the first FDA-cleared birth control app. No hormones, no side effects, and 93% effective with typical use, and 98% effective with perfect use. Just measure in the morning, add your temperature into the app, then learn which days you can and cannot get pregnant. It's that easy. Learn more at naturalcycles.com.
A house is a property, but we live in homes. Home sweet home. Homes where the heart is. Home. There's no place like it. Homes are filled with memories and emotions. OfferPad knows this is your home, not your house. That's why we do what we do. Every day, we aim to deliver the best home buying and selling experience so you can spend less time real estating and more time living.
Get paid faster with Bill, the easiest way to send, receive, and manage your payments. No more delays, no more hassle. Whether you're a freelancer or a business, Bill makes payments seamless and secure, simple, fast, and reliable. Sign up today at Bill.com.
And now, back to our show.
Back to our show. We call it The Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Zach Burke, behind the scenes, behind the glass, keeping us on the air, as he does 5 days a week. We're live on YouTube, as we are 5 days a week, and then available wherever you get your podcasts as well. We've talked about Stefon Diggs potentially being cut from the Patriots. That's a dumb idea, trust me. We've also gone down the head coaching candidates for the Boston Bruins. Why haven't they hired one yet? Are they waiting on Pete DeBoer? Maybe Don Sweeney can look really smart if that actually ends up coming to fruition. And now it's time for the Red Sox. It's been a disappointing season for the Red Sox, make no mistake about it. But there is one guy who's actually out there healthy that is undoubtedly not a disappointment for this 2025 Red Sox team, Garrett Crochet. And he showed you again on Sunday that he is the ace that's worth those prospects and worth that money that you're going to be paying him for the next 6 years. We know it was an awful week last week for the Red Sox. They go into Atlanta on a losing streak. They win on Friday, finally, ending a 5-game skid. They look like the Red Sox again on Saturday, and then they have a chance to win this series on the road against a team that's 500 but playing better baseball as of late, that just took a series from you, in the Atlanta Braves. And you have your ace on the mound. And Garrett Crochet gives up a solo homer in the first, and after that, he absolutely cruises. One run over 7 innings in a 3-1 win. He struck out 12 in a career-high 112 pitches. He was humiliating these hitters. He was in some trouble at some points, but he just kept getting the big out, the big punch out. Garrett Crochet, you paid him to be an ace. You gave up capital that would imply that he is an ace. He is an ace. A goddamn ace. But I'll tell you what worries me. And it probably shouldn't, but it does. I think back to 2017. The start of this year for Garrett Crochet is very similar to me, just vibes-wise, as what it was for Chris Sale. That team was better than this Red Sox team, but they were below expectations for the first couple of months that season. They couldn't hit. They weren't giving Chris Sale run support, and you were wasting those days where he was giving you Cy Young kind of outings. Garrett Crochet is doing that right now. He's in the Cy Young conversation right now. He is doing that every 5th day. In fact, I was at the game on Memorial Day in Milwaukee where he started, 6 innings, 2 runs, 11 strikeouts. He was fantastic. And when he was going off the field, all I could think of was, man, this is the only guy doing his friggin' job right now. It's the only guy on this team doing his job. And he has been all season long. But I'm worried that they're squandering it like they did with Chris Sale. Now, they got a World Series in the next year in 2018. And Chris Sale had trouble finishing an entire season, which we'll get to that in a second. But looking at how long Chris Sale was with the Red Sox, right? 6-7 years there. And with what he gave you the first 2 seasons, if you had told me that, yeah, it's going to be 1 World Series, and he's really only going to be a factor in 2 postseasons that you ever play in, really 1.5, then I would say you're crazy. That's nuts. And I would say it was a bad contract to extend him. And it was. It was a bad contract to extend Chris Sale. I think the Red Sox should have waited a little bit more to see if he could pitch a full season, but he was also one of the best pitchers in baseball. Garrett Crochet could run into that same issue here. Again, a career high in pitches, a pitch count yesterday. He leads the league in innings pitched. Again, this was a guy whose major concern coming into his Red Sox tenure was that he'd only pitched over 100 innings once. And how durable is the guy? Can he be a top-end ace starter just from a health standpoint for an entire season, from a workload standpoint? Well, in 32 starts last year, he threw 146 innings. In 13 starts this year, which leads the league, he has 82 innings pitched, which leads the league. He also leads the league in strikeouts. He's the first guy to hit 100 this year. Did that on Sunday. He's the only guy out there doing his job. And yet I'm sitting here thinking, are they going to waste him? Are they going to waste him already? Because, they're not putting their best team out there on the field. They're terrified, just shitting their pants at the thought of calling up the number 1 prospect in baseball. And if Roman Anthony isn't the number 1 prospect in baseball, then Jack Caglione, or if you say it, is. And the Royals just called him up. But they're not worried about him needing to be the savior of the team. And poor Garrett Crochet is just shoving every 5th day to hopefully just sit on his knees and pray the rest of the 4 days that his offense will give him 3 friggin' runs so that he can win some of these games. His run support total is not that much different than he had. It's a little bit less than a run more per game this year than he had last year with the Chicago White Sox as the worst team in modern baseball history. Until the Rockies break that this year. Like, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about not many degrees of separation in terms of run support from the worst team ever and this year's Red Sox team. It's sad that you should be, goddamn, man, you should be winning pretty much every Garrett Crochet start here. This is like Pedro in 99. He's not getting any help, and yet he's still dominating this league. And if he did get some more help, he'd be at the top, I think, at the top of a pretty hotly contested AL Cy Young race as we sit 2.5 months into the season, not quite the beginning of June. But it all goes back to how frustrating this Red Sox team is, right? The unproductive outs, the terrible approach, and watching the same guys just die out there every day. I know Trevor Story had a better series, but before that, he was the worst hitter in baseball. David Hamilton, absolutely hapless, man. Like, just doesn't give you anything. Ceddanne Rafaela, outside of one good game at the end of the Milwaukee series, where he had a huge base running blunder, by the way, just gives you nothing. By the way, they lost that game. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that. They lost that game by a run. That he was doubled off going to third base when there was already a guy at third base. So all these guys are just giving you nothing. Christian Campbell, by the way, one of my favorites, is giving you nothing. But he's a rookie, and you need him to play every day to get out of this. Roman Anthony, though, we don't want anyone thinking he'll be the savior. The team's in friggin' they're in 4th place in their division. If Roman Anthony stinks, they'll still be in 4th place. Okay? Nobody thinks he's the savior of this team. But it's sad. I'm getting PTSD from seeing those years of Chris Sale being one of the most dominant pitchers in the league and his team not picking up the slack. And ironically enough, at the end of 2018, when he didn't pitch for a month and a half, was when his team was picking up the slack, and they're the best team in Red Sox history. But it's all too familiar because this team right now, this iteration, not as good as the ones that Chris Sale played for at the beginning of his Red Sox tenure. They're not. I hope they'll get there someday. But the benefit of those teams at the beginning of Chris Sale's Red Sox tenure is they add Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, Andrew Benintendi, Rafi Devers. All young homegrown guys that they were not afraid to bring up. Xander Bogaerts was 20 years old with a couple of major league at-bats under his belt playing in the fucking World Series. Mookie Betts, first injury they had in 2014, they bring him up. Andrew Benintendi, got an injury out there. You need some pop in the lineup. You don't want to put Travis Shaw in left field anymore. Don't want to keep playing these guys out of position. Andrew Benintendi comes up. 2017, you don't want to play Brock Holt at third base every day. Rafi Devers comes up. And yet, for some reason, this new regime, they don't like that. They'd rather have complete outs out there. Trevor Story, David Hamilton, they're outs. That's all they are. They'd rather see those guys play. They'd rather see Christian Campbell play out of position. They'd rather see quadruple A guys play in the starting lineup every single day, like Abraham Toro at first base. You got a nice 2 weeks out of him. Okay, how much more are you going to get out of the guy? They would rather see that than see Roman Anthony. And it took an injury to their best player to get Marcelo Meyer up there. They'd rather see Abraham Toro and David Hamilton and Trevor Story and Ceddanne Rafaela every day than they would want to see Roman Anthony. Like, how does that not piss you off? How does that not get your blood boiling as a Red Sox fan to see this team continue to disappoint? Yeah, they took a series against the Braves. That was nice. They needed that. But there's no definition of disappointment that doesn't fit the Red Sox for 2025. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're coming at you live on YouTube, high noon Eastern time, every weekday, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. Check out the other videos on the YouTube channel talking Red Sox and everything else going on in the world of Boston sports. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Zach Burke keeps us on the air 5 days a week. And before we go, I want to bring up something that doesn't really have to do with Boston sports, so I'm saving it till the end. But we've got to change the NHL playoff structure, man. We just do. After that conference finals, it just stinks. And every other sport, baseball, basketball, specifically football, what they want to do is they want their two best teams or their four best teams facing off in the semifinals. That's what they'll do. It's a super easy playoff structure to do. Just, lowest seed playing highest seed until we get to the finals. Hockey is the only one that doesn't want to do that. And time again, we have seen, specifically in the Eastern Conference, the Atlantic teams are better than the Metro teams all the time. Even when the Metro team wins the President's Trophy, 2024, the New York Rangers in the conference finals were wiped away by the Atlantic Division winning Florida Panthers. The Panthers just embarrassed the Hurricanes this year. They did it 2 years ago as well. They swept the Hurricanes. They beat them in 5 this year. The Metro can't keep up. So why are we getting these awesome series in the first 2 rounds? Florida, Tampa, Florida, Toronto, and not getting that in the conference finals. Why is Gary Bettman in the NHL okay with, let's just get a bunch of ratings, great TV ratings in the first round, and then abandon it? Because as you've seen, they are dipping big time, and they're pretty low for a conference final. By the way, it happens in the West too. Like Edmonton and the Kings were probably the 2 best teams in the West this year. And instead, they faced instead of facing off in the conference finals, they face each other in the first round for the 4th year in a row. It sucks. It sucks. I don't know. Again, I love the NHL. I love this sport. That's why I get passionate about it. But you are ruining your chance at growing the sport just because you want to have this wacky, zany playoff structure. It's fucking stupid, man. It's fucking stupid. And I got worked up over the weekend. I had a super lame tweet that I got called out on, and I should have been. But Stephen Schock, who this is going to somehow get to college baseball before we end this show. Stephen Schock, college baseball guy, tweets out how the regionals in college baseball are so good, and they should be getting more recognition as one of the best sports days of the year. And it kind of pissed me off. And I was being super lame old man about it. But I quote tweeted it, and I was like, that's not how this works. You don't just give something recognition in sports. You don't just give recognition to a sport, to a weekend, to a tournament. Like, it needs to be earned. People need to like it. It's got to have intrigue. And the reason why I gave that super lame boomer take, which I believe, but it is stupid, is because, like, the Stanley Cup playoffs are, in my opinion, better than any other pro sports playoffs there are. And yet, it will always be 4th out of 4 of the 4 major sports. Will always be 4th. Like, to me, that shit is way better than the NBA. In fact, the other 3 are much better than the NBA. The NBA, sometimes you get a good finals, but really it's about this one player or this one player. The other 3 sports have much better postseasons, but the NBA is going to be second. It's always going to be second. No matter what. Popularity, zeitgeist, culture, whatever you want to call it, they're always going to be second. And here's the NHL. I don't know if it puts them up to 3rd or 2nd in popularity. Probably doesn't, right? But, like, you're missing the easiest thing you can do here. Just put your 2 best teams in the conference against each other in the conference finals. They're the only sport that doesn't want to do that. It's really bizarre to me. It's really bizarre. So they need to change that. That's the last gripe I'm going to have. We are live on YouTube tomorrow at high noon Eastern time, just as we are 5 days a week and available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, tells my bosses I'm doing my job. Maybe not even a good job, but doing my job. And we will see you tomorrow on a little ditty that we like to call The Cam Show.
The office. Improve your posture, reduce strain, and work smarter. Visit us at hinomi.co today. That's HINOMI.co today. Storage without compromising security. Visit internext.com today and take control of your digital life. That's INTERNXT.com today. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com. With a team of seasoned professionals in R&D, design, and manufacturing, we prioritize quality across our entire product line. Visit Tusains.com today and start your journey to better health. That's TOUSAINS.com.